My name is Henry Cole, and I've been the night clerk at the Marlowe house for longer than I should measure in days. The desk keys weigh the same as the decisions I keep. Small, cool metal that I slide across the counter like a metronome. People ask how long I've been here, and I say, long enough, because time gets soft inside these walls. The Marlowe used to be a thing of pride. Broad oak doors, polished tiles, a central fountain rimmed with stone roses. My family built things with confidence once. We believed our names meant something. They called a home. Then the sickness came, and everything brittle about life snapped. Back when the world still had a clock that meant anything, my father made a promise. He wanted his family safe. He wanted the building to endure. He wanted a kind of permanence that money can't buy. He found someone who offered permanence. It was a polite man with a patient voice who kept his bargains in the whisper between breath and will. The terms were offered like a ledger balanced by a hand that did not care for mercy. We read the lines. We signed. The bargain saved us in shape and in body. We stayed. The town outside folded into memory. Folks packed up and left. The road out of town became a thin line of dust. The Marlowe did not decay. It did not welcome relocation. Instead, it became an island. Not on the map, but in the seam between what was and what must come next. That seam holds things that aren't alive in any honest way. It holds what is unfinished. Now the Marlowe is a kind of way station. People arrive and act like they belong until they understand they don't. A guest is given their key, a polite sheet that reads, "Pleasant stay," and a path that always curves back to the lobby when the building means it to. We do not have calendars that help. Our clocks are ornaments, stopped at a dozen different hours, staying polite about the illusion of normalcy. My job is small. Greet, assign, avoid touching the ledger in ways that feel like temptation. I keep the house, I learn the footsteps, and I learn how the building listens. There are rules. People like rules when the world goes soft at the edges. Rules make a patch of certainty where the rest insists on slipping. The Marlowe has its own. They are old as the deal was, and they do not change just because I grow used to them. 1. Do not answer a child's whisper from the garden if it reaches you after midnight. It will not be the voice you remember. 2. Do not approach the west stair at 1:15 to 2 a.m. The steps there go where they should not. 3. Don't look long into the mirrors in the corridor wings when the lights dim. They will show you the copy that wants your place. 4. Never pry open the sealed door in Suite 213. If that lock turns, do not stand under the threshold. Those are the lines we trace to stay intact. For years, these were theory. Ink on a notice board someone had scrawled carefully in a hand older than my own. For years, I believed the rules were the sort of superstition property stewards keep because it lets new clerks feel important. Then one spring night, a child named Jonas and his friends started coming in. Neighborhood kids who had learned how to slip through the service gate and hide in the shadows. They played a game they called Tag of Shadows, which sounded like a bad joke at first, and then like a warning, because Jonas would tell me, with eyes too steady for his age, if someone touches you twice, you run. Don't wait. He should have been ignored. He should have been told to go home. Instead, I found myself watching them from my desk. They were bright with the reckless courage of youth. Glow bracelets, whispered plans, the sharp joy of being unseen. Jonas laughed the way boys laugh who think the world is sound and consequence. But when he looked at me, it felt like he was watching the horizon for something that had been known there for a long time. The first signs were small. A hall light that blinked in a rhythm no bulb holds. A fountain that trembled though its pump was off. The clocks that told different hours told me less and less about the actual time. Then the mirrors began to slip. A reflection would hesitate, then blink on its own, or hold a smile a half beat too long. Once the security feed showed the west stair moving when the new meter said the power was cut. Once a figure draped in a long coat stood by the fireplace and did not appear in the footage even though the swing of its shadow crossed the floorboards in the camera's mouth. And then Jonas was gone. Not small man gone, Not the kind of kid goes missing when misadventure happens. He was just absent. A seat left pulled back from a table. An empty bracelet left on a bench. The police checked. In a way police check when something sits just close enough to suspicion to make them nervous, but not enough to file the kind of warrant that pulls the whole town waking. People left notes, prayers, candles in the courtyard. I did my rounds and hid my knowledge like a broom kept under the sink. You do not tell the neighbors about the sound in the walls. It is not worth the town's pity. You do what must be done on your shift. You keep the salt lines. You walk the property. You say the words at night. As above, so below. We've said these words until they thread loose in the mouth. The words bind the ground around us like a seam, and they have kept the below from pulling through, for the most part. The below is not hell. It is a place without movement, a corrosion not meant for human spirits, but made of something that eats at identity. Souls left too long under its bloom become downers. Things that look like people until you see the wrongness in their joints. One winter, I found a smear in the salt. My route, the circle I walked every night with a tin lantern and a cup of coarse salt, is a ritual. You scatter the grains just so, like casting a line. The salt breaks the approach. It's a math with no errors permitted. That night the line had been dragged. 3 clean furrows where wind or rain could not have done the work. No footprints led away, just a mark. I patched the salt and spoke the words. Nothing answered back like it should. I felt underfoot, a deadness. The line lay still. That was the first honest panic I let myself have. After that, things accelerated. The registry and the ledger picked up names that were not meant to be written. Rooms once sealed, open like a secret you didn't plan to keep for long. One page in the book showed a name typed flatly, machine clean, where it had always been smoke sign in older script. The number next to it, how long they should stay, was a dash. No number. That line was for room 213, a room our maintenance man had barred decades ago, and someone had hammered shut after a collapse. There should not have been a record at all. A key was missing in the hall of keys. The velvet under its drawer glowed faintly in a red that only matters when a lock is used in the wrong order. Then the blue dress arrived. I didn't want to leave the security office that night. Every instinct in me said to stay inside, lock the door, and wait for morning. But the air in the room felt heavy, like the mall itself was leaning and listening, breathing with me. I stood there for a long time, staring at the frozen feet of the escalators. The image didn't change, but something about it felt alive. Like if I blinked too long, that screen would show me something I wasn't ready to see. I finally forced myself to step outside. At first, nothing felt unusual. The halls were quiet. The air was cold and still. The mannequins in the storefronts stared blankly into nothing. But then I heard it. A soft tapping sound. Tap, tap, tap. It came from ahead of me, near the fountain. I should have walked the other direction. I know that now. But curiosity pushed me forward. Curiosity and fear. I needed to know if Eli was still inside. I needed to know if the voice calling my name earlier was him, or something pretending to be him. The tapping grew louder as I approached the center of the mall. The cracked fountain sat under the dim skylight, shadows stretching long across the floor. And then, from behind one of the stone pillars, something leaned out. Evan. It was a whisper, a child's whisper, but not Eli's this time. Higher pitched, lighter, like someone very young. My chest tightened. I stepped back. The voice came again, closer this time. Evan, come here. I clenched my fists. Rule 1 echoed in my mind like a warning siren. Don't answer. It is not a child. So I didn't. I kept my mouth shut. I held my breath. I stayed still. A small figure stepped into the dim light. It looked like a boy, maybe 8 or 9 years old. But his face was wrong. Blurry, like a smudge on wet glass. Like the mall was trying to remember what a child looked like, but couldn't get it right. He took one slow step toward me, then another. His shoes left no sound on the tiles. He lifted his arm as if reaching for me, his fingers trembling. Evan, why didn't you answer? His voice twisted on the last word, the pitch deepening into something older, something ancient. I stepped away. He moved faster. I turned and ran. The sound of small feet chased me down the hall, echoing like dozens of footsteps instead of one. I sprinted past the empty stores, past the dark mirrors, past the mannequins that all seemed to be looking at me now. When I reached the far hallway, the lights flickered violently. All of them, one by one, like something walked beneath each bulb, killing the light above it. I ducked into the shoe store and pressed myself behind a shelf of dusty boxes. My breath shook. My hands wouldn't stop trembling. I tried to make no sound, not even a whisper. And then, from the hallway, tap, 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 slow, deliberate, getting closer. I bit down on my tongue to stop it from shaking. I squeezed my eyes shut. A shadow appeared on the wall outside the store. But it wasn't a child's shadow. It was taller, thinner, stretching across the tiles like fingers reaching. The tapping stopped. Silence swallowed the air like a vacuum. I waited. 10 seconds. 20. A minute. Then a whisper slid into the room like cold air, leaking through a crack. You can't hide, Evan. I felt sick, like something was crawling under my skin. Something pressed lightly on the store's glass window. A fingertip, then another. Tap, tap. Then the tapping stopped. I waited as long as I could before stepping out. When I finally walked back into the hallway, everything looked normal again. Too normal. Like the mall hid what happened the moment I wasn't watching. I walked toward the west wing, against my better judgment. My feet moved on their own. Maybe I wanted proof. Maybe I wanted answers. Maybe the mall wanted me to see something. But when I reached the escalators, the air changed. A cold wind pushed down the steps, even though the building was sealed. The escalators groaned. The metal rattled. And then I saw it. A hand. A pale, thin hand reaching from between the escalator steps. Fingers curling. Searching. Feeling the air. I didn't move. A second hand appeared, gripping the metal rail. Then a face rose slowly between the steps. Not a full face. Just the top half. Eyes too wide. Skin stretched. Mouth hidden behind the metal. The head turned, staring at me. A whisper drifted up the escalator. Evan, come here. I stepped backward, so fast I nearly fell. The escalator shut off. The hands disappeared instantly. The eyes blinked out like a light. The metal stilled. I didn't breathe until I reached the other side of the mall. I walked toward the arcade. The old machines were dead, screens cracked, buttons missing. The prize counter was covered in dust. But the silence felt wrong. The air felt warm around the emergency door behind the claw machine. That door. Rule 4. Do not open the emergency door behind the arcade. I hadn't noticed it before, but tonight it was cracked open. No light came from the other side. Only darkness, thick and heavy, and something breathing. A slow inhale, a long exhale. My heart pounded. My palms sweated. Every bone in my body screamed at me to back away. But then I heard a sound from inside that door. A tiny whisper. Evan, help me. Eli. It was Eli's voice. Raw, weak, begging. My throat closed. Tears stung the corners of my eyes. Eli, I whispered before I could stop myself. A mistake. A huge mistake. The breathing inside the doorway stopped. The air grew still. Then footsteps. Slow, dragging footsteps. Coming toward the door. Something gently tapped the inside of the door frame. Once. Twice. 2 taps. The kid's rule. Eli's warning. Never let anyone touch you twice. I staggered backward. The door creaked wider. And for a split second, I saw a face inside. Not a creature. Not a monster. Not a shadow. Eli. But wrong. His neck was bent at an impossible angle. His eyes were dark and reflective like mirrors. His mouth stretched open silently, too wide, too forced. He took one step forward, his arms dangling, his legs stiff like broken joints. Evan, he whispered through teeth that didn't move. You're late. I ran. I didn't look back. The hallway twisted around me like a maze that kept rearranging itself. Doors closed by themselves. Lights flickered so fast they buzzed like insects. The air felt electric, heavy, charged with something ancient. When I reached the loading dock door, I grabbed the handle and pulled with everything I had. The cold night air washed over me like a blessing. I stepped out and then felt it. A small hand grabbed my wrist. Another tapped my shoulder. One tap, two taps. A voice pressed against my ear. "You're it now." My vision went white. Sometimes on the quieter nights, I walk the hallway outside Suite 213, even though I know better. The door is still sealed. The wood still has the faint scent of varnish, though no one has touched it in years. There's a temperature change when you pass it. Not a cold, not a heat, but a pressure like someone inside is holding a long breath. I always whisper the same thing. I kept my side of the deal. The house never answers, not in words, but the walls shift slightly, like a sleeper turning in their sheets. On those nights, I think about my father's handwriting, the way he carved instructions in the margins of the old ledger. He had a way of pretending the house was tame, like a dog you could teach tricks to. But even in his strongest days, he never walked the west air between 1:15 and 2. He never touched the sealed door. He never called out when the garden whispered his name. He followed the rules with the fear of someone who knew exactly what broke them. He died quietly, not in the house, far from it, but I know the house marked his passing. The chandelier dimmed. The air tasted metallic. A floorboard groaned like an old friend grieving. People say buildings cannot mourn. The Marlowe does. Sometimes I think the house loved him in the way dangerous things love their keepers. Sometimes I think it mourned because it knew the debt would fall to me. Most nights slip by with a kind of rhythm. Footsteps, sweeping, checking the registry, listening for sounds that don't belong. But the balance shifts at odd hours, when the walls feel thinner and the rooms echo too much. That is when the downers come closest. They don't knock. They don't breathe. They linger near the windows and watch for the ones who break the rules. I've seen their silhouettes blot out candlelight. Bent figures with heads turned sideways, like owls twisting farther than human bones allow. Their mouths hang open, not in hunger, not in rage, but in yearning. Yearning for breath, for identity, for something they lost when they stayed too long below. People think ghosts wander. Downers do not wander. They wait, long and patient, until the house lets them move again. One night, not long after Mirabelle left, maybe a month by the building's memory, though the clocks never agreed, a guest arrived who shouldn't have been able to find us. His name in the registry read, Mr. Alder Gray. Typed clean, perfect, nothing handwritten about it. I had not entered it. I had not taken a call. No reservation had been made. He simply walked through the main doors with a leather suitcase and a cane carved with symbols no craftsman in this town would have known. He wore a charcoal coat with silver stitching along the cuffs. Old stitching, careful stitching, the kind you only see in garments meant for ceremony. His shoes made no sound on the tiles. No sound at all. When he reached my desk, he removed his hat with deliberate calm. "Good evening, keeper," he said. I had not been called that word in decades. Not since my father's passing. "Sir, I managed. How can I help you?" "You cannot," he said, "but the ledger can." He tapped the counter with 2 fingers. 2 taps. The sound made my spine lock. For a moment the lobby seemed to tilt. A slight, impossible shift, like the building bowed in recognition. I slid the registry toward him. Or rather, I meant to. The registry slid itself, gliding across the oak as if pulled by an unseen hand, stopping perfectly beneath his fingers. Mr. Gray opened it to a blank page. The lights flickered. A cold wind pressed against the windows, though the night outside was warm. He didn't write a name. He didn't sign the date. He simply whispered, "Balance requires witness." The ink bled onto the page. Not from a pen, from the paper itself. A single dark line appeared, then another, then a symbol I had never seen. It looked like a cross inside a circle, or a compass turned inward. When the ink settled, Mr. Gray closed the registry gently. "You have done well keeping the boundaries," he said, "but the house is restless. It remembers what you gave. It remembers what you took." I swallowed hard. "What does it want now?" I whispered. He tapped the ledger again. "The house dreams of returning to the world that forgot it, and there are forces that wish to open its throat." I didn't understand then. Not fully. But his next words chilled the marrow in my bones. "There's a visitor coming," he said softly. "Someone the house will not allow to leave." "Who?" I asked. He looked at me with a calm that felt like eternity. "The one your father feared most." My breath caught. I wanted to ask more, a dozen questions, 100, but he lifted a hand. "When they arrive, you will know, and you must choose whether to keep your vow or break it." Before I could speak, the lights dimmed entirely. Darkness swallowed the lobby. When they blinked back to life, Mr. Gray was gone. No footsteps, no door opening, no lingering warmth from a body, just absence. The registry lay shut on the counter. I touched it with trembling fingers. The page he had written on was still damp, and the ink smelled faintly of the ocean. After that night, the house grew louder in ways only I could hear. Some hallways echoed twice. Footsteps shadowed me even when I was alone. The mirror showed a version of me slightly out of sync, blinking late, turning its head after I turned mine. The fountain in the courtyard, long dry, rippled once, as if touched by a hand beneath the stone. And the garden whispered my name more clearly than it had in years. "Henry." The voice was small, familiar, a voice I had loved, but I didn't answer. I never answer. The rules keep you alive until they don't. And then something happened that made me realize Mr. Gray had not been warning me about a ghost or a downer or some stranger wandering from below. He had been warning me about someone alive, someone who still walked the world, someone who carried a story tied to mine, someone the house wanted back. It began with a letter, left on the front desk sometime after midnight, though I did not see or hear its delivery. A simple envelope, my name on the front, Henry, written in my father's handwriting. When I opened it, only one line sat on the paper inside. "He remembers what you took." I stared at that line for a long time, trying to breathe, trying to understand. Outside, the fountain rippled again. The hallway lights blinked as if someone walked through them. And deep in the west stair, I heard something moving up the steps. Not the soft shifting of a downer, not the slide of something half-formed. These steps were confident, even, measured, human. And I realized, whoever was coming, whoever the house wanted, was almost here. And this time, the house did not want a deal. It wanted payment. The footsteps on the west stair were steady, too steady for anything that had ever lived in the below. Whatever climbed toward the second floor landing wasn't dragging itself, or stumbling, or moving in that broken way the downers did. This was a person, a living person, someone breathing, measured, deliberate. But there was something strange about the sound. The steps on the wood didn't echo. In a Marlowe, everything echoes. It's a building made of old bones and large spaces. Footsteps travel for long stretches before dying. But these were silent except for the creak of the stair itself, as if the person walking had no weight at all. I stood behind the front desk, every muscle locked. The air in the lobby felt dense, like pressure building in a storm. I whispered the old sealing words under my breath. Not a spell, nothing so dramatic, just a pattern my father taught me, a verbal rhythm meant to keep the house's attention steady. But the words didn't calm the walls anymore. They didn't reduce the tension. If anything, they made the house lean closer, as if it wanted to hear every sound. I moved around the counter and stepped toward the west hallway. My lantern swayed gently in my grip. My breath sounded too loud. The ticking of the old brass desk clock felt sharper. The world narrowed to the slow climb of unseen feet. One step, another, another. Then the stair went silent. Someone, or something, had stopped on a landing. I lifted the lantern higher. Hello. I called softly. Who's there? No answer. A warm draft drifted down the corridor. Unnatural, humid, like breath. I took one cautious step forward. Then the air shifted. A whisper rolled along the ceiling like water sliding downhill. Not words, not a voice, just the sense of something recognizing me. The lantern flickered, and that's when I heard my father's cane tapping the wood. Once, twice, that same rhythm I grew up hearing. I froze. That cane broke with him. We buried it, yet the sound echoed clearly. Tap, tap, tap. I stumbled back, my lantern trembling. No, I whispered. That's impossible. The tapping stopped. Then footsteps moved again, not away, not toward me, but shifting in place like someone pivoting slowly to face the hall. My throat went dry. The house was calling someone home. Someone who had walked these halls before I ever learned to walk them. Someone I had failed. A shape drifted into view at the top of the stairs. Not a downer. Not a stranger. A man. Tall. Still-boned. Wearing a dark coat. And leaning on a cane carved with symbols I remembered tracing with my fingers as a boy. Dad. I whispered. He stepped into the lantern's reach. My father's face looked exactly as it did the day he said goodbye. Unchanged. Unaged. Untouched by a thing like death. Only his eyes were wrong. They were hollow. Dark. Deep as the bottom of a lake you cannot see through. Henry, he said quietly. The lantern went out. Darkness swallowed us. My heart slammed against my ribs. The air felt wet. Heavy. Breathing. I stepped back blindly. My foot hit the edge of a rug. My balance wavered. Dad. I whispered, my voice breaking. You're dead. He didn't answer, but I felt him near. Too near. A hand, cold and soft, brushed my shoulder. Henry, he whispered again. It's time. The building groaned around us, beams tightening, floors swelling, walls sighing as if the entire structure leaned toward us. The house recognized him, and it wanted something from me. I backed away until my spine hit the wall. What do you want? I whispered. He stepped closer, but his footsteps made no sound now. None. When he spoke again, his voice changed. Lower, older, layered, like several voices speaking through one mouth. You made a bargain, he said, and bargains need tending. I gave the house my name. I whispered. I paid the price. No, the voice said. You offered a part, not the whole. I shook my head. My breath trembled out of me. That wasn't the deal. Deals shift, the voice said through my father's face. The house hungers. It remembers bloodlines. It remembers the ones who built its bones. The building groaned again. Lights in the hall burst softly, tiny pops like knuckles cracking. Then the walls shuddered. Long cracks formed along the plaster, spiderwebbing toward me. Why are you here? I whispered. To finish what he started, the voice said. My father slowly lifted his cane. The symbols along its length glowed faintly, not with light, but with absence, like holes burned through the world. He pointed it at the marble floor, and the house responded. Tiles shook. The fountain in the lobby splashed, though there was no water. The chandelier swung violently, metal clinking like teeth. A seam opened in the floor at his feet. A long, black fracture. Not a hole. A doorway. The house was waking the below. My legs nearly buckled. Dad, please don't do this. For a heartbeat, I thought the real man inside that body might answer me. That he might come forward, if only long enough to warn me. But the thing wearing his skin smiled. Keeper, it whispered. The below remembers it's dead. Then the seam in the floor widened, and something began to climb out. Hands gray and wet like stones soaked in rain. Fingers long and trembling. Faces half-formed. Eyes empty. Mouths open in silent longing. The downers. Dozens of them. Crawling out of the crack. Pulling themselves onto the marble. Dragging their bodies toward me. Some whispered. Some moaned. Some just stared at me with empty hunger. I stepped back until I hit the front desk. My father, or the thing using him, pointed his cane at me. "You belong to the house," he whispered. "You always have." I shook my head violently. No. The seam grew. Darkness swallowed the tiles. Cold air surged upward like breath from a deep well. I reached for the lantern. My fingers trembled too much to grip it. The first downer reached the desk. Its hand brushed my sleeve. Cold. Slimy. Wrong. I choked on my breath. "Henry," the voice said again. My father's voice twisted into something unrecognizable. "It's time for you to take your place." The downers closed in. The seam widened. The floor buckled beneath me. I had no escape. And then, a sound shattered the air. A scream. A woman's scream. From the garden. The garden that should have been empty. Quiet. Dormant. I knew that voice. I hadn't heard it in years. But I knew it. Mirabelle. She was back. And she was screaming for help. The house reacted instantly. The downers froze. The chandelier stopped moving. The seam in the floor pulsed. My father's head snapped toward the garden. His expression twisted with hunger. "No," he growled. "She is not yours to take." I whispered. "She is the only one who can open the way." The voice hissed through his teeth. "She is blood." Mirabelle screamed again, terrified, raw, echoing off the courtyard walls. I ran. I didn't think. I didn't plan. I just ran. Behind me, the downers shrieked. My father's cane struck the floor like thunder. The entire hotel shook. But I didn't stop. I sprinted toward the garden doors as every shadow in the Marlowe bent toward me. As I grabbed the brass handle, I heard his voice, the thing wearing my father, whisper one final warning. "Henry, if you open that door, you'll break the last seal." I pushed it open anyway, and what I saw in the garden should not have existed on this side of the world. The moment the garden door swung open, warm air rushed past me. Not the natural warmth of a summer night, but something thicker, heavier, like the breath of a living creature pressed too close to my skin. The lantern in my hand flickered wildly, struggling against a darkness that felt almost alive. I stepped out, and my heart stopped. The garden had changed. It was no longer the quiet courtyard with stone benches and wilted rose bushes. What spread before me now was a maze of twisting vines, wet soil, and tall black flowers swaying gently without wind. The old fountain in the center stood cracked and dry, but something moved inside it. Something pale, something small. Mirabelle. She was curled at the bottom of the emptied fountain, clutching her knees, shaking violently as she sobbed. Her white dress was torn. Her hair clung to her face in tangled strands. She looked up when she heard me. "Henry, help me, please." Her voice cracked like dry branches. She reached a trembling hand toward me, and for a moment, I saw the little girl she had once been. But then, I saw her shadow. Her shadow stretched across the fountain wall in a way shadows don't. It bent upward, not downward. It twitched like something scraping against stone. And as she moved, her shadow lagged behind, a moment late, as if something else was wearing it. My breath broke. "Who did this to you?" I whispered. Mirabelle shook her head frantically. "It followed me," she cried. "It followed me out of the corridor. It wasn't supposed to. He said it couldn't. He said." Her words died. She pointed behind me. My blood froze. Slowly, painfully, I turned around. The entire hotel stood in silence behind me. Every window dark except one. Suite 213. Its curtains fluttered, though there was no wind. Then the lights inside flickered on, once, twice, in a slow, deliberate rhythm. Tap, tap, 2 flashes. A message, a summons, a warning. I took a step back toward the fountain. "We need to leave," I whispered. "Now." Mirabelle shook her head again. "We can't." The vines around the fountain walls tightened, like a trap closing. I grabbed the edge and started to climb in, reaching for her. The ground beneath us trembled. A deep rumble rolled under my feet, shaking soil loose from the roots of the black flowers. The vines on the fountain walls writhed like snakes. And then, a long, pale arm reached out of the soil. Another followed. Hands clawed upward, dragging a body out of the earth itself. A downer, half-formed, its ribs visible beneath thin gray skin. Its eyes were empty, swirling black pits. Its mouth stretched open in silent hunger. It wasn't climbing toward me. It was climbing toward Mirabelle. She screamed. I dropped into the fountain without thinking and pulled her away just as the creature's fingers grazed her ankle. The touch left a smear of dark residue, like soot, burning into her skin. She gasped in pain. "They found me," she whispered. "The Downers. They followed me through the corridor. They want me back." I held her shoulders. "You're alive," I said. "They can't take you. Not unless..." I stopped. Unless the house gave permission. Unless the seals were weakened. Unless a bloodline broke the rules. Unless someone opened a door he shouldn't have. Suite 213's lights flashed again. Tap, tap, then again. Faster. Tap, tap, tap. The house was speaking, crying, calling, begging. Mirabelle grabbed my hand tightly. "Henry," she whispered, "he's coming." The garden lights, the old lanterns lining the path, all turned on at once. A blinding white glow. Then, a shadow stepped out of the doorway behind me. Tall, straight, human. My father, or whatever wore his skin. He walked toward the fountain slowly, placing his cane gently in the soil with each step. The flowers bent away from him, as if afraid to touch him. Mirabelle clung to my arm. The man stopped a few feet away, his face calm, almost gentle. "Henry," he said softly, "let her go." "No," I whispered. "She belongs below," he said. "The house gave her a path long before she was born." I shook my head. "She's just a girl. She is a key," he murmured. "A hinge between two worlds. A child of your line, a daughter of the bargain." Mirabelle's voice shook. "He's not your father, Henry." I already knew that. The thing wearing him tilted its head. "When the living and the below are out of balance," it said, "the bloodline must pay. And you erased your name from the ledger. So the debt falls to her." My hands tightened into fists. "I won't let you take her." The creature's smile stretched, slow, unnatural, tugging the corners of my father's mouth too wide. "It's not your choice," it whispered. The ground shook violently. The black flowers wilted instantly, curling into ash. The vines on the fountain shuddered and cracked. The downer in the dirt screeched. Mirabelle screamed and held my arm tighter. The creature raised its cane. Symbols along the wood glowed like smoldering embers. "Bring her," it said. The downer lunged. I grabbed Mirabelle and pulled her out of the fountain just as its claws snapped shut where her neck had been. We fell on the grass, rolling, gasping, scrambling. I pulled her behind me. The creature stepped closer. "Henry," he said, voice shaking with something old and patient. "You cannot keep her. Not from this." My voice cracked with fear and rage. "She's family. She's an offering." Everything inside me broke. I lunged toward him, not to fight, but to block his path. The air thickened like syrup. The lantern shattered in my hand. He tilted his head again, the sound of bones grinding echoing through the courtyard. "You would stand against your own house." "Yes," I whispered. "I would." Silence. Then he smiled. "A shame," he murmured. "You were my favorite son." He lifted the cane, and the garden exploded in light. For a moment, I thought it was the house itself rebelling, pushing back against the creature it once served. But the light wasn't white. It was red, a deep, pulsing red that illuminated the sky like a burning star. The creature staggered backward. Mirabelle gasped. I turned. The light was coming from inside the hotel. From Suite 213, the sealed room. Its door, once bolted, locked, sacred, now stood wide open. A tall, thin silhouette stood in the doorway. Not my father, not a downer. Something else. Something the house had kept asleep for decades, centuries maybe. Something that should have never been woken. Mirabelle's voice trembled. "What is that?" The creature wherein my father recoiled. "The first debt," it whispered. "To the original keeper." Sweet 213's light pulsed faster. Red, red, red. The silhouette stepped forward. Slowly, gracefully, as if waking from a long dream. The garden went silent. Even the downers froze. My breath vanished from my lungs. Deep in my bones, I felt a truth I did not want. The house wasn't calling my father back. It wasn't calling the downers. It wasn't even calling Mirabelle. It had been calling him. The original keeper. My ancestor. The man who forged the first bargain. The one whose name was carved into the oldest parts of the ledger, then erased by the house itself. He stepped out of Suite 213 fully. His eyes were not human. His skin glowed faintly. His presence bent the air around him. He lifted his hand toward the creature wherein my father, and the thing screamed. A high, shrill, desperate sound. Not a human scream. Not a downer's hiss. Something older. Something terrified. Mirabelle clutched my hand. "Henry," she whispered. "What is he?" I could barely breathe. I whispered the only words I could manage. "He's the one the house has always been waiting for. He's the one the house has always been waiting for." The red glow intensified. The ground beneath us cracked. The vines shriveled. The original keeper stepped forward. His voice, calm, ancient, rolled through the garden like thunder made of silk. "Henry Cole, your time as keeper is over." When he spoke those words, the entire garden stopped breathing. Not a single leaf moved. Not a single vine shuddered. Even the downers froze mid-crawl, their heads snapping toward the red-lit doorway like terrified animals, sensing the arrival of a true predator. Mirabelle squeezed my hand so hard her nails cut my skin. Her voice trembled. "Henry, who is he?" I could barely speak. The original keeper. The man whose blood made the first bargain. The man who stitched the house into this world. The man whose name the house itself carved into the oldest beams was walking toward us. He wasn't a ghost. He wasn't a downer. He was something in between. Something held upright by the house. Something fed by old promises and older hunger. His body looked human. His face looked human. But everything inside him was not. The air around him hummed with pressure. The grass wilted where he stepped. The light bent slightly, as if his presence strained the shape of reality. And when he looked at me, I felt my heartbeat slow. Not from fear, but because something inside me recognized him. My bloodline remembered him, and it bowed. He lifted his hand toward the creature wherein my father. The thing tried to run, or melt back into the earth, or hide behind the downers. But the original keeper didn't have to touch him. He simply said, "Unbind." My father's body convulsed. His cane shattered into black dust. The symbols carved along it burned away like paper catching fire. Then the creature peeled itself out of my father's frame like smoke abandoning a dying flame. A long, writhing shadow spilled onto the ground, clawing blindly at the soil like it was drowning. My father's body collapsed, lifeless, empty, a shell that had been borrowed too long. Mirabelle screamed. I lunged forward, trying to reach him, but the original keeper stepped between us effortlessly. He didn't push me. He didn't move quickly. He simply appeared where I moved, like time folded around him to keep him always in the right place. "Do not touch the vessel," he said softly. "It is hollow." I stared at my father's body, shaking all over. "Please," I whispered. "Let me take him. Let me bury him." The original keeper looked at me with something that almost resembled pity. "He is not yours anymore," he said. "He belongs to the house now." I staggered backward. Mirabelle clung to me, terrified to breathe. It was then I realized the house wasn't just watching. It was listening. The vines leaned toward him. The earth pulsed faintly beneath his feet. Suite 213 glowed brighter, like a heart beating inside the walls. The original keeper stepped past us, his gaze fixed on the downers. They shrank back like children caught misbehaving. Their bodies curled, their long limbs folded inward. Some whispered apologies. Others clawed at their faces as if desperate to hide. He raised his hand. Return. The downers screamed, a sound so shrill it sliced straight through my rib cage, and were dragged toward the cracked soil like puppets pulled by invisible strings. One by one, they slipped beneath the earth, some sobbing, some begging, some calling my name, pleading to be saved. Mirabelle buried her face into my shoulder. It's sending them below, she whispered. Henry, it's sealing the garden. I watched helplessly as the last downer, a small one, barely formed, clawed at the grass, trying desperately to hold on. Its hand brushed my shoe. Its voice broke. Help me. Then the earth swallowed it. Silence returned, sudden and absolute. The original keeper turned toward me. Your work is done, he said. No, I whispered. It isn't. I'm the keeper now. He shook his head slowly. You are only a placeholder. A boy who inherited a task he did not understand. Anger swelled in my chest. So what now? I demanded. You take my place. You take the house. You take her. His gaze slid toward Mirabelle. She is blood of the line, he said. She is mine to claim. Mirabelle stepped back so fast she stumbled. Her breathing cracked. Her eyes filled with terror. No, she whispered. Henry, please, don't let him. I moved between them without thinking. The original keeper tilted his head, studying me with mild curiosity. You would protect her? Yes. You would defy the house? Yes. You would break the oldest law? If I have to. He regarded me silently for a long moment. Long enough for the vines around the fountain to shrivel and gray. Long enough for the lights in every room of the hotel to blink once. Finally, he spoke. Then you have chosen your fate. What fate? I asked. He lifted his hand and pointed at me. The house will not let you leave. Not anymore. Something inside my chest snapped like a tight string breaking. My breath caught. My vision blurred. What did you do? I gasped. I have done nothing, he said calmly. The house chose long before you understood the rules. Mirabelle grabbed my arm. The original keeper continued. You erased your name from the ledger. So the house made a correction. My knees buckled. What correction? I whispered. He stepped closer. You are no longer Henry Cole, he said softly. You are the house's anchor. The ground trembled beneath me. Mirabelle screamed my name. You are the next gate. The red light from Suite 213 exploded outward, bathing the entire courtyard in a bloody glow. Vines snapped upward like living ropes. Flowers wilted instantly. The fountain cracked down the center with a thunderous groan. The original keeper raised both hands. The house claims its keeper, and the walls of reality, the seams of the hotel, the floors beneath my feet, everything began to tear open beneath me. Mirabelle grabbed me, sobbing and screaming my name. I tried to hold on her hand, but my feet slid across the ground as the earth beneath the garden split open. A black, bottomless void yawned beneath me. Mirabelle shrieked, "Don't let go." I tried. I swear I tried, but the pull was too strong. The house was taking me somewhere deeper, somewhere no living thing should go. The original keeper's voice thundered, "The below waits for you." And as the ground swallowed me, Mirabelle reached for me one last time. Henry. Her fingers grazed mine. Just enough for me to understand one final truth. She would not survive this alone, and I would not return the same. The void closed over me. Darkness seized my lungs. Cold wrapped around my bones like chains. And in the endless black, something whispered, "You are ours now." I don't remember hitting the bottom. There was no impact, no landing, no moment where my body met ground. It felt like falling through thick water, slow, heavy, endless, except I could breathe, even though the air felt rotten. Every breath tasted like stone dust and old metal. My ears rang with a deep, low hum, the sound of something alive but sleeping, or waiting. When the darkness finally loosened, I found myself standing, barefoot, on a surface that wasn't really a surface. It looked like solid ground, a black, polished plain stretching forever in every direction. But when I stepped, it rippled like liquid. Above me, there was nothing. Below me, there was nothing. Just this endless black plain, like a mirror reflecting a world that didn't exist yet. "Hello," I called out. My voice didn't echo. It just disappeared, swallowed by the dark. A faint light flickered far ahead, white, trembling, distant as a star seen through fog. I walked toward it because there was nothing else to do. Every step sent slow waves across the surface. As I drew closer, the light grew into shape. A lantern. My lantern. The same one that had shattered in the garden. But here it was glowing, sitting upright on the dark floor. I reached for it. Before I touched the handle, someone whispered directly behind me, "Henry." I spun around, heart slamming into my throat. A boy stood there, barefoot, pale, eyes pitch black. He wore old-fashioned clothes, suspenders, a white shirt, sleeves rolled to the elbows, like someone pulled straight from a century-old photograph. His smile was small, sad, almost friendly. "Who are you?" I whispered. He tilted his head. "You know who I am." The air around him shimmered, faint and distorted. And then I understood. He wasn't a downer. He wasn't a ghost. He was a memory of someone the house had eaten long ago. "My name is Thomas," he said softly. "I was the first." My breath caught. "The first what?" "The first keeper who fell," he said. "The first the house pulled below." My blood turned cold. He stepped closer, bare feet not disturbing the surface. When my time was over, he whispered, "The house swallowed me, just as it has swallowed you. I'm not staying here," I said, voice shaking. "I won't become this." Thomas smiled at me with a sadness too old for a child's face. "You already have," he said. The lantern beside me flickered. The black floor trembled. Then I saw them, shapes rising in the darkness. Dozens of them, figures emerging like shadows stepping out of ink. Some tall, some small, some twisted, some barely human, all watching me, all silent. Thomas reached out and touched my hand. His fingers were cold, so cold the chill sank into my bones. "The house chose you," he whispered. "You are the next anchor. You hold the doors shut. Without you, everything spills out." I shook my head. No, I didn't." He squeezed my hand. "You didn't choose it, but it chose you." Around us, the figures began whispering, soft, broken words, all overlapping. "Keeper, stay. I stumbled backward, trying to tear my hand from Thomas's grasp, but he held on. "Henry," he said, voice breaking, "there is something you must know." "What?" I gasped, trembling. He leaned close until his forehead touched mine. "You are not alone down here." The darkness behind him exploded. A roar so deep it shook the ground. Wind slammed against my back. The lantern's light stretched thin like pulled taffy. Thomas's face twisted in fear. No, he's awake." "Who?" I shouted. His answer was a whisper drowned by the rising storm. "The one the house fears." A shape rose behind him. Huge, human-shaped, but wrong. Limbs too long, bones bending under skin that shifted like liquid shadows. Eyes glowing faint white. It stood taller than any doorway, taller than the house, taller than the sky. Thomas shoved me backward, screaming, "Run, Henry, run before he..." A hand, massive, skeletal, wrapped around Thomas and lifted him into the air. He screamed once, then silence. The giant figure leaned down, its face inches from mine. Its breath smelled like old soil and forgotten memories. Then it spoke, and its voice was 1,000 voices layered together. You do not run from me, Keeper. The world shattered into black. Something grabbed my ankle, dragged me deeper, colder, farther, until all I could hear was the sound of my own heartbeat disappearing. And the final whisper, "We haven't even begun."